This is a follow-up video on the PCUI, the Pocket Computer Universal Interface. And in this video, I'm going to be demonstrating some of the new features specifically around a new web interface. The PCUI can be seen here, and this is the same version, board revision as the previous videos. And in case you haven't seen any of the previous videos about the PCUI and what this project is, the PCUI is effectively a interface for vintage pocket computers and calculators, Texas Instruments graphing calculators. And by interface, it is providing a printer and program storage on micro SD card. It has a printer connections to serial and parallel versions there. And the vintage pocket computers, the printers and plotters are sometimes difficult to find. They may not be in working order. They're rather expensive, rare. So the PCUI provides an interface point to connect those pocket computers to more modern printers that are a little bit less expensive, such as a thermal receipt printer, as an example. These are around, let's say, $20 to $30 on the used auction sites, or a larger dot matrix printer could be used. And the PCUI stores programs on micro SD card. So that, I've put some previous videos up demonstrating that. So in today's video, I'm going to be showing the web interface for the PCUI, and specifically some of the features and capabilities for TI graphing calculators. So this example here is a TI-92 Plus. And like most of the other TIs of this era, it had a GraphLink port here on the top in this model. The other ones, the smaller ones, would have the GraphLink port on the bottom. And this is a standard 2.5 millimeter 3-pin connection. You can get these connectors if you don't have one, or if it's lost. You can get these cables on Amazon fairly inexpensively. Most of the graphing calculators back then did come with the cable, which is kind of a bonus, actually, to have that cable included, because the calculators can talk directly between themselves as well. So you can link to TI-92s, share programs, that kind of thing. So in this case, I have the TI-92 connected to the PCUI. The PCUI has a GraphLink or TI-Link port here. And I have the PCUI in the TI-92 Plus mode. And this is a newer board revision, the PCUI, so we have the calculator RX and TX indicator lights on the board as well. And in a minute, you'll see why those are blinking fairly constantly. So looking at this new feature, this is actually something that I created for the PCUI as a new feature, really to highlight the plotter modes, and I'll get to that in the second half of the video here. But while I was doing that, I tested this on a TI, this graphical user interface. So this is what comes up when you enable the Wi-Fi and web server settings. So in the PCUI, we have new settings. I'll go to the menu and select them here. So we have a Wi-Fi menu, which has a status screen, enable, disable. You choose a network and enter the password. Then you can turn on the web server, and that is what enables the web interface that you could use over a standard browser. So when enabling web, not web, but the Wi-Fi, which is a prerequisite for the web interface, the Wi-Fi feature on the PCUI is not just for the web interface, but also to get the date and time. Because the PCUI does not have a built-in real-time clock. Once it connects to Wi-Fi, it fetches the current date and time. And that's really useful for when saving programs on the SD card, because without the date and time, programs are saved and data is saved without a timestamp. Not the end of the world, but it is convenient to have the correct date and time there. And the other thing the PCUI does is it registers an MDNS entry, or multicast DNS, so that devices on your network would be able to find the PCUI by name. So every PCUI will have a unique identifier. So if I go to Wi-Fi, go into status, the device name in this case is always prefixed with PCUI dash and then the unique Pico chip identifier. In addition to that, we have the IP address. So if we go to the web interface, you can go to the web interface via the IP address or by the name of the PCUI, the device name, followed by .local. In my case, that's what I have my network named as. So that MDNS will maybe a little bit easier to auto-discover there. But either way, IP address would work just fine. And looking at the web interface, we have all the standard buttons on the side of the screen, labeled. So there's the up-down arrow keys here, and then we have the back or OK buttons, and these are soft keys, so their function sometimes can change, right? So depending on the screen or menu that's currently being displayed, the definition of those buttons changes along with that menu. So in this case, I can go to settings directly from the web interface and go up and down. So for example, I can change the PNG setting as an example from, whoops, I think I went, what did I do there? Let me go back. Went too far down. The screen refresh here is a little bit behind. And let's see, so for inverse, what I'll do is I'll change that, the inverse setting. I'll change it to no, as an example. And then the screens obviously have changed because I changed that setting. So I'll go back to inverse and change it back to yes. So the PCUI screen is rather small. It's sometimes difficult to read. So if that becomes a challenge, you can use the web UI here, the web interface, to make all the settings changes, view the status. Pretty much anything you can do on the regular UI screen with the buttons on the PCUI, you could also do on the web interface. So looking at the TI features specifically, so we're in the TI-92 Plus mode, and we can see the screen of the TI-92 Plus below. So for example, if I were to go into the graph mode here, the screen is refreshing every 1.5 to 3 seconds, somewhere around there. So we can see the current screen on the TI itself. And that's what the flashing lights were for. The PCUI indicates send receive on the attached calculator. And there's also a Wi-Fi. The onboard LED on the Pico is indicating Wi-Fi activity. So that would flash on occasion because the browser is constantly fetching the new screenshot. So I can also click on the TI view both on the picture or on the top menu bar here. And then there's a larger view of the current TI screen. And that really serves a purpose to kind of make it a little bit larger. The other reason for this separate screen is also to be able to control the TI. So the TI does have some remote capability. Not only can it take screenshots remotely over the TI-Link cable, the TI-92 Plus and some of the other models can accept remote keyboard commands as well. So for example, I can use the arrow keys. Let's see if I can get this to rotate the up arrow and the down arrow. So the graph will slightly rotate. Let me see if I can go the other way so it's a little bit more clear. So I'm just pressing the keyboard up and down arrows here as an example. And we can see that the TI is accepting those commands. So the browser here is sending the keyboard codes directly to the PCUI, and the PCUI is then pushing them to the TI-92 Plus. Screenshot is updating in the background. In addition, if I go to the calculator screen is another example of this. We can type in a simple equation on the keyboard here, is how I'm typing here, on the PC keyboard, that is. There's a little bit of a lag, but it is usable. Pressing enter. And we can see 5 times 5 is indeed 25. I can also clear the screen, so the F keys are also mapped, F1 through F8, I believe. And then I can press, to clear the home screen, I can press 8, save myself some keystrokes there, and it clears the home screen. I could also press the backspace key and clear out what is on the line there. So not every key is mapped yet on the TI-92 Plus. I have to get a little creative on the star key, the second key, certain key combinations. The direction pad is mapped, the F keys are mapped, and most of the alphanumeric keys are mapped as well. So this might be useful for, you know, instruction or you know, sharing the screen on a Zoom or something. I don't know that many people use a TI-92 Plus these days, but it's more of a proof of concept to see if it could actually work, and it seems to work okay. The other thing to note here is that this requires obviously a TI calculator. This does not work with the vintage pocket computers. This is only a TI function, the screen. And the other thing I mentioned is that maybe in the description of the video or on the title that this effectively could bring this TI-92 Plus onto online, because this is a web view served over a browser or over HTTP. It is not TLS enabled, so it's not secure or encrypted in that respect. You could put this through your firewall or router, and others from the outside would be able to access this web page. I don't recommend actually doing that. I don't think the PCUI's web server is bulletproof or hacker-proof, so it could be done though. Just again as a proof of concept. And the other thing that is interesting about this feature is, in theory, because the PCUI is now, you know, has access to the internet, it is possible to build, for example, a proof of concept having 2 TI-92 Pluses for chat over the internet. So that in theory could work. So for example, if I typed in, you know, hello on the keypad on my TI, that could go out to the internet and come back into somebody else's TI, and vice versa through the remote commands. It was possible to have 2 TI calculators talk to each other in a sample chat program. I think that was in the user guide for at least the TI-92s. But this would take it a step further in a sense, and you know, could go out over the internet and come back to another TI halfway around the world or all the way around the world. So that'd be an interesting proof of concept. But anyhow, that's one of the main features. If I go back to the home page of the PCUI, we've also added, well, we have a status screen on here, and the version and build number is displayed at the top as well. So I've added all those various features to the web interface. The other useful thing for this, really the primary reason I created this web interface, not only to interact with a slightly larger screen here, but also to visually show the plotter in action. I published a video about the plotter emulation specifically with some of the vintage pocket computers. I'm just going to unplug the TI-92 and put that aside for a minute. And the vintage pocket computer that I demoed with, the plotting, you know, the plotter emulation was this Casio FP-100. This came with a plotter that was the FA-10 or FA-11, and I'll put a video here on the screen of the test mode that particular plotter has. So it moves the paper and the pens. So if you tell it to draw a box or a circle or dotted lines or characters, it can do all of that, and all of that functionality is simple to do in BASIC. You can just send a draw square command in BASIC, and it's one line of BASIC, and it just draws a square, circle, etc. And combining those plotting commands, you can do some pretty interesting plots on the small plotter that came as part of the FA-10, which is a docking station for the PB-700 and the PB-770. And so we can see that plotter in action, and that doesn't really, those plotter commands don't really work natively with a dot matrix printer or an Epson thermal printer, for example. These are more considered line printers. In a sense, they accept plain text, so they just print line after line, for example. But they can't move the paper backwards. They can't draw they can draw circles, squares, plots, etc., but that would be a bitmap image, and it would just print the entire bitmap, not a line or a circle or a square at a time like the plotter would. So the plotter feature, plotter emulation, I've highlighted that in a previous video. This video is really also just an update. Now that there's a web interface, I can provide a visual representation of the status of those plots as they're printing. So let me switch the mode here on the PCUI to PB700. And then, let's see, I'll plug in the interface pack here. Okay. So the PB700 is on. And the correct mode is set. And then if we look at the screen, the UI screen here, web UI, I'll refresh it because I've changed the mode. And because it's connected to, or it's currently in a Pocket Computer mode that supports Plotter, and I mentioned in a previous video, all of the Pocket Computer modes support the Plotter emulation. So when you're in a TI mode, that is currently off. It's instead the TI view, and then when you're in any other mode, the Plotter view becomes activated here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the PB700, for example. I'm going to go to a test program space that I have set up already, and I'm going to put this in printer mode, and I'm going to run the basic program that outputs a plot or uses the plotter. So go ahead and hit run here, and we can see the receive lights are on, so it's receiving data from the printer output on the Pocket Computer. And then looking at the PCUI web interface, the plotter view is actually showing a near real-time view of its virtual canvas. So as the Pocket Computer is running its program and performing the plotting output, the PCUI is interpreting that output and simulating it on its internal in-memory virtual canvas. But now we have a view into that canvas as it's doing its work. Before, you couldn't really see that. You would just see the print that would happen a minute later or so. And then, you could see that it printed out okay, as seen in the previous video. But this gives you a peek into the process as it's drawing internally in memory. So when it's done, it will print out to the printer, and we'll see that on the display as well as on the printer itself. And let's see if that print appears. So we could see the printing on the PCUI is indicated here, as well as on the actual PCUI itself. And then the print should come out, and it did. So prior to the web interface, you would just see the print come out a few minutes later. And then similar to the TI view, if you click on the enlarged view, if you click on the image, you'll see an enlarged view of that plot take place. And I can actually start that over as an example, just so we can see what it looks like in the larger view. Sometimes the plots are a little bit intricate, and the smaller view is kind of makes it a little bit obscure. So the larger view is just a more zoomed in example. And after it printed, you noticed that the screen held the last plot on the screen itself. So the PCUI could be used, could be disabled in terms of the printer output could be turned off. And if you're writing a basic program and you don't want to waste a lot of paper or printouts, you could tweak the program, watch its output on the PCUI, on the web UI, and just iteratively make updates or changes to your basic program without actually printing anything. So that's another good feature of this plotter view. So it'll hold that last image when it's done. It'll hold it on the screen until the next one begins plotting. And so that's a great example of a useful purpose for the web interface itself. In terms of some of the other automatic features that are happening here behind the scenes, I'll show that after this is done printing here. The PCUI saves every plot that it makes to a PNG file. So let me stop the printer mode. I'll put the PCUI in USB drive mode. So that will expose the SD card over USB, and I have my computer plugged into the USB port here. So that will come up as a folder. So if I scroll or drag this over here, we can see folders for each of the Pocket Computer models here. So I'm on the PB-700. I can go into the plots folder, and the PCUI will generate these plots, the PNG files automatically. So here's an example of the plot we just did. So it's saved there as a PNG. The PCUI also saves an animated GIF file of the plot itself, just so you can see the sequencing there. And that is most useful for some of the longer plotting examples. So the example that comes to mind immediately is the Globe program, which I'll put a video of it, a fast sped up version of that video, because this particular plot takes about 25 or 30 minutes to draw out. Both the Casio, the actual plotter takes a while as well. So it's not that the PCUI is slow. It just, there's a lot of lines and curves and things like that to draw this, and that just takes a while. And the sped up image of the PCUI, the web interface for it showing this plot is quite interesting. So you can see it working as it's plotting. So you don't have to wait 30 minutes for the printout. You could actually see it as it's going on its way. And so an example of that, there's an animated GIF for that as well. Let me see if I can find where it is. I think it's this one. So you can quickly see how it drew all the various lines and points and curves and things like that. So those are features you could turn on and off, on or off in the PCUI menu itself. So that's a summary of an enhancement for, I'm going to turn off the USB drive here, an enhancement for a web interface that is, again, kind of useful for viewing plotter output as well. The last thing I wanted to show about, in terms of features, a little bit more, would be the ability to write programs in a text editor on the computer or on a PC or over the web interface versus typing in programs directly on the Pocket Computer. So for example, I'm going to unplug this connector here, and I'm going to switch over to the Sharp Pocket Computer model. So I'll disconnect the PB-700. I'll go into settings here and change the calculator model over to the 1401 Sharp, for example. And then I'll plug in the actual Sharp, which I have over here. So the PCUI uses, and I've mentioned this in prior videos, but it uses what I'm calling interface packs that connect the various Pocket Computers to the same port on the PCUI. So because I'm switching from a PB-700 over to a different model here, which is the Sharp 1401. This is the 1403, but it's in the same family of similar models. And I'd always recommend plugging in the Pocket Computer side first, so we don't short anything out. A lot of these calculators have metal covers on the front. I'm not sure how conductive they are. And the other end of that cable I'll plug into the PCUI. And it is now connected. I'll turn it on. And so we are now, let me put it in basic mode here, now connected and ready. So the other feature, I'm going to refresh the PCUI web interface here, and we're now on the 1401. I'm going to go into the file menu here, which the PCUI has a file browser here, and this is the contents of the SD card, and that allows me to effectively go into the specific folder. So in this case, the PC 1401, and I could view and download the plots that we saw earlier, which is helpful directly from the web UI here. I don't have to attach the PCUI to USB port and turn on the USB drive mode. I could also download that data or view the plots and download the GIF files and PNG files over the web interface, but I could also write basic programs over the web interface here. So yes, I can type in programs on the keyboard here, but sometimes if you're working on a program and you make a mistake, it's hard to see. This is a one-line display. So you can edit programs on there and you can view them one line at a time. But the other way of doing this is you can create a new program using the create new, and then you can, I just created this hello world. I just typed in 10 print hello world, saved it, and now that exists on the SD card. So I can go into the Sharp itself, the Pocket Computer, type in cload. Then on the PCUI, I can select the hello world text file, that .txt, press OK. And the PCUI sent that hello world program. I'll hit run, and it works. And so I can make edits and send them down to the Pocket Computer as well. So this text or ASCII mode works in both ways in the PCUI. So the PCUI, although this is a text file, in this particular model, as far as I know, does not support ASCII mode program transfers, unlike some of the other models that do. This one only accepts binary. Tokenized BASIC. And so the PCUI ends up detokenizing. If you send a BASIC file from the Pocket Computer to the PCUI, it will detokenize. So it'll save the bin file on the SD card. It will then also detokenize that BASIC program and save the same file with a .text extension. So if you send a file from the Pocket Computer to the PCUI, you can then edit that directly in the web interface. So the reason for using separate text in bin files is so that you can also attach the USB drive mode, which I showed here, and open it up in like a file explorer on your computer and edit with a text editor there as well. So the text file is available. It also works in reverse. So when you select a text file on the PCUI and send it to the Pocket Computer, if it's not tokenized, it will tokenize it on the fly and then send it. So that works both ways. That'll work with all of the models that the PCUI supports. So that would be all of the Sharps, Casios, Tandy, Radio Shack, Pocket Computers as well. So easy program editing is now a feature of the PCUI, which is quite useful for some of the larger programs. The other thing you can see is, for example, the banner program that I often demonstrate with a lot of these Pocket Computers. The editing is a little bit easier when you see multiple lines on the screen at the same time, so it just makes it a little bit faster and easier. You can then also copy and paste parts of one program to another, or you can copy a program from one model to another model, provided that the commands are similar or the same. Obviously, that's what I did with the Globe program, which is originally a PC 1500 program, but I've copied it, pasted it, and made some small edits to it, and then sent it to the Pocket Computer. So that is that's a feature of the PCUI now, is the tokenizing, detokenizing on the fly. So it's great for editing programs as well. So I mentioned that a few times. That is it for updates on the PCUI, other than minor revisions to the software, which I'm going to post the updated firmware for all of the features I'm showing here shortly. And the PCUI is now on a Pico 2. I was getting a little bit tired of trying to conserve memory, and the Pico 1 just was a little bit short on memory for some of the features that I wanted to implement here. So the first release of the board is on the Pico 2. It's pin equivalent to the Pico. The first Pico just has a lot more flash and memory. So that has been improved. And that's it. So thank you for watching.